"You're just being dramatic again," Anna, my dad, sighed, his voice heavy with irritation, barely glancing up from the crinkled pages of his morning newspaper. I was doubled over the kitchen sink, my breakfast swirling in my stomach, threatening to make a violent reappearance. The sharp pang of nausea twisted my insides, and I gripped the counter, willing myself to stay upright. My stepmom, Diana, hovered nearby, her hand resting gently on my back. Her touch was soft, almost comforting, but her concerned expression didn't quite reach her cold, calculating eyes. "Maybe you should stay home from school today, sweetheart," she suggested, her voice dripping with a syrupy sweetness that felt rehearsed, like a line from a script she'd practiced too many times. "I'll make you my special tea. It always helps with those pesky stomach aches, doesn't it?" The thought of drinking anything she prepared sent another wave of nausea crashing through me, my stomach churning harder than before. This wasn't new. This had been my reality for months, ever since Diana swept into our lives after her whirlwind marriage to my dad. Every meal she touched, every drink she handed me, left me sick, dizzy, or worse, sometimes even passing out cold on the bathroom floor. "No," I managed to croak, straightening up and wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. My voice was weak, but I forced the words out. "I have a chemistry test today. I can't miss it." The truth was, I couldn't afford to stay home, not with her. I'd started bringing my own lunch to school, carefully packed in a little blue cooler I kept hidden in my backpack. And mysteriously, on those days when I ate my own food, I never got sick. It was like my body was trying to tell me something my mind wasn't ready to accept. Diana's eyes narrowed, just for a split second, but her smile stayed plastered on, as fake as ever. "Such a dedicated student," she cooed, turning to my dad with a performative tilt of her head. "Isn't she amazing, Robert?" My dad just grunted, his face buried in the sports section, oblivious to the tension crackling in the air. He hadn't really looked at me, not truly, since he married Diana 6 months ago. It was as if he'd traded his daughter for his new wife, and I was nothing more than an inconvenient ghost from his past life, haunting the edges of his new, perfect world. I grabbed my backpack, my legs shaky but my resolve firm, and headed for the door. Every step felt like a small act of defiance, a refusal to let Diana's shadow swallow me whole. As I reached for the handle, her voice cut through the air like a knife. "Wait, Anna, I made you a smoothie for the road. Extra protein to help with your episodes." She held out a sleek stainless steel travel mug, her perfectly manicured nails tapping rhythmically against it. There was something in her eyes, a flicker of something dark and unreadable, that made my skin crawl. "Thanks, but I'm running late," I lied, my heart pounding as I practically bolted out the door. Behind me, I heard her voice, sharp and syrupy, telling my dad how ungrateful I was. His murmured agreement, low and dismissive, hit me like a punch to the chest. My heart ached as I hurried down the street, the weight of their words trailing me like a shadow. At school, my best friend Olivia took one look at my pale, drawn face and frowned, her brow furrowing with worry. "You look like death warmed over, Anna," she said, pulling me aside into the quiet corner by the lockers. "This isn't normal. How long are you going to keep ignoring what's happening?" Her words were blunt, but her eyes were soft with concern. I slumped against the cold metal lockers, exhaustion settling into my bones. "What am I supposed to do?" I whispered, my voice trembling with frustration and fear. "Every time I mention feeling sick, Dad says I'm being dramatic. Diana acts concerned, but..." I trailed off, unable to voice the dark suspicion that had been gnawing at me for weeks. "But she's poisoning you," Olivia finished flatly, her voice low but steady. "We both know it, Anna. These episodes only happen when you eat her food. You're fine when you stay at my house or bring your own lunch. That's not a coincidence." "That's crazy," I whispered, but my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "Why would she want to poison me?" Olivia's eyes darkened, and she leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because you're the only thing standing between her and your dad's inheritance from your mom. Remember how interested she got when she found out about the trust fund you'll get at 18? My mom had died 3 years ago, leaving behind a substantial inheritance that would become mine when I turned 18, just 6 months away. My dad had control of it until then, but he couldn't touch the principal. Unless something happened to me. The thought sent a shiver down my spine, cold and sharp, like a blade against my skin. I've been documenting everything, Olivia continued, pulling out her phone with a determined look. Every time you get sick, what you ate, when it happened. I've even been taking pictures, Anna. You've lost 15 pounds in 2 months. This isn't in your head. She swiped through her phone, showing me photos I barely recognized as myself. My normally healthy complexion was now pale and sallow, my cheeks hollow, dark circles framing my eyes like bruises. I looked years older, like a ghost of the girl I used to be. When had this happened? How had I let it get this far? We need proof, I said finally, my voice shaking but resolute. Real proof, not just suspicions. Olivia squeezed my hand, her grip warm and steady. My aunt's a nurse at County General. She's working today. Let's skip chemistry and get you a blood test. If Diana's poisoning you, it'll show up. The thought of missing my chemistry test made my stomach clench, but not nearly as much as the thought of going home to another one of Diana's special meals. I nodded, my decision made. 2 hours later, I sat in a sterile exam room at County General, watching as Olivia's aunt drew vials of my blood. She didn't ask many questions, but her expression grew graver with every symptom Olivia listed: nausea, dizziness, fainting spells, weight loss. The results should be back in a few hours, she said, labeling the last vial with a steady hand. I'm marking it urgent. Anna, do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight? Her question hit me like a bucket of ice water. Even a medical professional thought I was in danger. She can stay with me, Olivia said quickly. My mom already said it's okay. I sent my dad a text, claiming I was studying late at Olivia's. His reply was immediate, almost mechanical. Diana's making her famous pot roast. Come home for dinner. Moments later, my phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Diana herself. Don't disappoint your father, Anna. Family dinner is important. I made it specially for you. Reading her words, a chill ran down my spine, cold and sharp. For the first time, I let myself fully acknowledge the truth I'd been avoiding for months. My stepmom was trying to kill me. And my dad, lost in his own world, was too blind to see it. The hospital waiting room felt suffocating, the walls closing in as Olivia paced back and forth. I stared at my phone, watching the messages pile up from my dad and Diana. Anna, Diana's worried about you. Come home now, my dad texted. Then Diana, the pot roast is getting cold, sweetie. I made your favorite gravy. And again from my dad, stop being difficult. You're upsetting Diana. Each message made me feel sicker, my hands trembling as I turned off my phone, unable to bear their manipulation any longer. Anna Matthews, a voice called, snapping me out of my spiraling thoughts. I looked up to see Olivia's aunt standing with a doctor I didn't recognize. Their faces were grave, their eyes heavy with concern. We need to talk about your test results, the doctor said, leading us to a private room. I'm Dr. Martinez, head of toxicology. What we found in your blood work is deeply disturbing. He pulled up charts on his computer screen, pointing to numbers I couldn't begin to understand. Your blood shows elevated levels of thallium, a highly toxic heavy metal. It's often called the poisoner's poison because it's colorless, odorless, and its symptoms can mimic other illnesses. My heart stopped. Thallium. Yes, Dr. Martinez continued, his voice steady but serious. It's commonly found in rat poison, but it's strictly controlled. Someone would have to deliberately obtain it and administer it regularly to cause these levels. He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto mine. Anna, is there someone who might want to harm you? Before I could answer, the door burst open and a police detective strode in, followed by 2 uniformed officers. I'm Detective Sarah Torres, she said, flashing her badge with authority. The hospital called us when they saw your results. We need to ask you some questions. The next hour was a blur. I poured out everything, the mysterious illnesses that started when Diana moved in, how I only got sick from her food, the trust fund I'd inherit in 6 months. Detective Torres recorded every word, her partner scribbling notes furiously. We've seen this before, she said grimly. The gradual poisoning, the gaslighting, the inheritance motive. Your father's new wife fits the profile perfectly. But my dad, I started, tears spilling down my cheeks. He wouldn't let her. Your father might be a victim of manipulation himself, Detective Torres said gently. Or he might be involved. We'll need to investigate both possibilities. My phone rang, my dad's name flashing on the screen. Detective Torres nodded. Answer it. Put it on speaker. Anna, where are you? My dad's voice was sharp with anger. Diana's been cooking all day, and you're being incredibly rude. I'm at the hospital, Dad, I said, my voice shaking. Getting blood tests. For heaven's sake, not this attention-seeking behavior again, he snapped. Diana was right. You're just jealous of her. Come home now. Or what, Dad? I interrupted, my anger giving me strength. Or you'll let her poison me again? Silence. Then Diana's voice in the background, muffled but unmistakable. Robert, she's being ridiculous. You know I'd never. We have the blood tests, I cut in, my voice steady now. They found thallium. The police are here. The phone clattered on their end. I heard Diana's voice, panicked. They can't prove anything, Robert. Tell them. Detective Torres took the phone. Mr. Matthews, this is Detective Torres from Metro PD. Stay where you are. Officers are on their way to your location. She hung up and turned to me. You'll need to stay in the hospital overnight for treatment and monitoring. We'll have officers posted outside your door. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a text from our neighbor. Police cars at your house. Diana tried to run. They caught her at the end of the street. I should have felt relieved, but all I felt was exhausted, tired of being sick, tired of not being believed, tired of fighting for my life in my own home. Get some rest, Olivia's aunt said, adjusting my fore. You're safe now. But as I lay in the hospital bed, watching police officers station themselves outside my door, I wondered, was I really safe? How had my life spiraled into something out of a crime show? And more importantly, what would happen when I had to face my father again, the man who had chosen his new wife over his own daughter, who had watched me waste away and called it dramatic? Could any blood test repair that kind of betrayal? 3 days later, I sat in Detective Torres's office, staring at evidence photos spread across her desk like a grim collage. The search of our house had revealed everything: packets of thallium hidden in Diana's specialty tea collection, traces of the poison in her protein powder, and detailed notes about dosages in her personal diary. She was methodical, Detective Torres explained, her voice heavy with disgust. Started with small doses, gradually increasing them. Her diary shows she was planning to deliver a fatal dose on your birthday, 3 weeks from now. My stomach lurched, the reality of her plans sinking in. And my dad? I asked, dreading the answer. She sighed, shuffling some papers. Your father was willfully ignorant, but we found no evidence he knew about the poisoning. He's facing charges of child endangerment and neglect, but not attempted murder like Diana. I nodded, feeling strangely numb. My dad was being held in a different jail from Diana, and both had been denied bail. My phone was full of voicemails from him, angry accusations, tearful apologies, but I hadn't listened to a single one. There's something else, Detective Torres said, pulling out another document. When we searched Diana's computer, we found searches about your mother's death 3 years ago. My head snapped up. What? She was researching your mother's symptoms before her accident, Detective Torres said. We've reopened that investigation. The implications hit me like a freight train. Had Diana been in our lives even before she married my dad? Had my mom's death really been an accident? The DA is offering Diana a deal, Detective Torres continued. If she cooperates with the investigation into your mother's death, they'll recommend a lighter sentence for your poisoning. I stood up abruptly, my legs unsteady. I can't think about that right now. You don't have to, she said gently. Focus on getting better. The hospital says your thallium levels are dropping, but you'll need ongoing treatment. I was staying with Olivia's family, who had become my sanctuary in the storm. Her mom, a family court lawyer, was helping me file for emancipation. The trust fund my mom left would be enough to support me through college and beyond, giving me a chance to rebuild my life on my own terms. That evening, as Olivia and I sat in her backyard, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. It was my dad, calling from jail. "Answer it," Olivia encouraged. "You're safe now. He can't hurt you anymore." With shaking hands, I accepted the call. "Anna," my dad's voice cracked, raw with emotion. "Princess, I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have protected you. Like you protected Mom?" I asked coldly, my voice sharp with the pain I'd been carrying for years. His sharp intake of breath told me everything. "What are you talking about?" he stammered. "The police are reopening Mom's case, Dad," I said. "Did you know Diana back then? Did you know what she did?" "No," he protested, his voice desperate. "I met her at a grief support group 6 months before we married. She helped me through losing your mother. She helped herself to Mom's life," I corrected, my voice steady with conviction. "And then she tried to help herself to mine." The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken accusations. "I failed you," he finally whispered. "I failed both of you." "Yes, you did," I said, my voice unwavering. "Goodbye, Dad." I hung up, feeling lighter, as if a weight I'd carried for months had finally lifted. Olivia squeezed my hand, and we watched the sunset together, the sky painted in hues of orange and pink, a quiet promise of better days. 6 months later, I stood in a courtroom, watching Diana's sentencing. She had taken the DA's deal, confessing to everything, including her role in my mother's death. She had been stalking our family for years, positioning herself to replace my mom and, eventually, me. My dad received 5 years for child endangerment. Diana got 25 to life. Neither sentence felt long enough, but it was closure, a chance to move forward. I turned 18 the week after the sentencing, inheriting my mom's trust fund and our family home. The first thing I did was hire a hazmat team to deep-clean the kitchen, erasing every trace of Diana's poison. The second was to start therapy, a step toward healing the wounds that betrayal and poison had left behind. Olivia's family helped me move back into the house, and slowly, it began to feel like home again. I replaced Diana's toxic tea collection with my own carefully chosen herbs, each one a small act of reclaiming my space. I learned to cook for myself, finding joy in preparing meals that nourished my body and soul. Rather than harming them. 1 year later, I stood in my kitchen, preparing dinner for Olivia and her family, the people who had believed me, protected me, and helped me rebuild my life. On the fridge, an acceptance letter to the forensic science program at State University was proudly displayed, a symbol of the path I'd chosen. I wanted to use my experience to help others, to ensure no one else had to fight so hard to be believed. To new beginnings, Olivia's mom toasted at dinner, raising her glass with a warm smile. And to believing women when they say something's wrong, Olivia added firmly, her eyes meeting mine. I raised my glass, thinking of how far I'd come from that scared, sick girl who couldn't convince her own father she was being poisoned. "To truth," I said, my voice steady and strong, no matter how bitter it tastes. Later that night, I added a final entry to my journal. "Mom, I hope you're proud. I survived what killed you. I exposed the truth, and I promise I'll spend my life making sure no other daughter has to fight so hard to be believed." The bitter taste of betrayal would always linger, a faint echo of the past. But I had transformed it into something powerful, a determination to protect others, a commitment to trust my own instincts. Sometimes, the most toxic thing in our lives isn't the poison in our food, but the people who make us doubt our own truth. I was finally free. And more importantly, I was alive. That was the best revenge of all. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.